I remember talking to Yanic afterward about, not about how he played, but I said, well, what'd you think of Miami? He says, oh, man, I love Miami. That was great. He said it was warm. It was nice. All right. And I'd said, I think it was to Pat Flannery. I said, at the minimum, I said, Pat, he's going to get invited to the NBA G League Elite Camp. I mean, he'll at least get an invite to that, which he ended up getting. When I looked at the rosters for the G League Elite, I wasn't looking at the other players in the G League Elite. I could care less. I wanted to see who the other centers were. And I thought, he's going to dominate this group. Because there's 44 players there, 11 per team. And I said, he's going to dominate that group. And he did. Now, I thought he would come back to earth in the combine. And in some ways he did. But and so he was nowhere near as dominant as he was in the G League Elite. So that played out the way I thought it would. But the bottom line is with anything, and I when I was teaching, I would talk to my students about jobs. And I said, look, you could apply for 100 jobs. If 99 say no, all you need is one to say yes. And so in this case, you have 30 teams out there. It does not matter if 27 of them are like, no, he doesn't fit what we want to do, or 28. If he's got one or two that think he fits, great. Now, the other part, too, is keep in mind this. As the last 48 hours progressed, what happened with the NBA draft? One by one, players were surprising people by going back to their schools. The freshman from Alabama decided to go back. Pritchard decided to go back to Auburn. Otega Owe ended up going back to Kentucky. Because, again, we're in that NIL era right now. And that lasts for another 5 weeks, where it's the Wild West for 5 more weeks. So these people are getting legit money. And believe me, Yanic was offered legit cash to stay. He was. Okay? But there's another element that plays a role in this. We talk about his athleticism, his shot, and so forth. And if he's got a team or two that really loves him and they're telling him that, hey, that plays a role. So as each one entered the draft, guess what happened with Yanic? Anytime somebody in front of him entered the draft on the big board, he moved up one. And then he moved up another one. And he moved up another one. He might be on the cusp of being one of the 35 guys. I know it's a 30-player first round, but if you can get in the top 35, you're in pretty good shape. But here's the other element that I think plays into this that people have not talked about. Yanic's also 22. Okay? He is not a 19-year-old coming out. So something that you had to weigh in your mind is, and Zach Edey was older when he was drafted. Edey's was 22 or 23 when he was drafted in the first round by Memphis. But did it play a role maybe for him and people around him that, hey, next year you're going to be 23, and sometimes 23 in the NBA is less desirable, and he's hit it hot right now, and he's done it at the age of 22, and they're not holding the age part against him. Right? They're looking at his athleticism. He's fresh. Okay? It's interesting about the scouts. Some scouts said, well, yeah, he really fell into the radar. Well, you're not doing your job. Okay? No offense, but he's not playing in Conference USA. He's not playing in the Northeast Conference. He's playing in the Big Ten. So I'm thrilled for him, and I want to see this work out because he'd be the first player drafted since Seth Lundy, because both Jalen Pickett and Seth Lundy were taken in the same draft, Lundy being later, so he's the last guy drafted. Okay. All right. But And can you imagine in 3 years Penn State having 3 players drafted in the NBA? It hasn't happened in my career. And my career goes back a couple of years. Maybe 4 decades plus. All right. But I'm thrilled for him. Now, for Penn State, like I said, after the Miami situation, after Miami, I think they started to sense like, okay, this is real now. Okay, that's in the beginning of April. You know darn well they formulated like, okay, well, we have to adjust here, just in case. Now, they're right now the roster's at 9. I think when it's all said and done, the roster is going to be probably 12. There's going to be 2 more coming in. There's a process when it's not an American player, right? And who knows? They may dip back in again with that. You're going to have a young team. Everybody knows that. There are going to be people that are down on the program because of how it went last year. There are going to be people that are down on the program because Yanic's not a part of the mix. I can't tell you, outside of Purdue, Wisconsin, and Michigan State, and maybe to a point Michigan, how good anybody in the league is. If you're going to sit there and if you're going to tell me X, Y, and Z are great in the Big Ten, how do you know? Have you looked at the rosters? Because this is not 2010, where you sit there and go, okay, they got these 3 freshmen coming in. They lost these guys to the NBA draft. These guys graduated, and this is the core group back plus what they recruited. That's not how things work. For example, Maryland. Maryland, in its spring roster, had 11 players on it. You know how many players played at Maryland last year? None. Washington has 3 returning players. All right. Indiana, Darian DeVries, the best player he's bringing in is his son, who's a heck of a player, by the way. He just got hurt last year and he could only play 8 games at West Virginia. Right? I mean, how good's Iowa? I don't know. A lot of those Drake players did come over with Ben McCollum. I think 5 of them did, including the point guard. But I don't know how good they are. How good's Minnesota? I don't know. I mean, again, people make a lot of assumptions about where your roster, this is awful, terrible. You have no idea how good anybody else is. Maybe the people they brought in are terrific and they're going to be great teams. I don't know. Like certain teams, Purdue brought in 1 transfer, and that's the big kid from South Dakota State who came in. He's going to help them. He's going to be a good player for them. Wisconsin didn't change up anybody. Michigan State really didn't, except for recruits, didn't change up anybody. Right? But a lot of teams in the Big Ten have changed up their personnel. And again, we're just going to have to see who's good and who's not, because I don't know. And we know with Penn State, they've got to get, they got to get cracking with, the 2 foreign players that they're already in the pipeline to bring in, but there's a process to do it. So the process isn't quite complete yet. And then I think that, for obvious reasons, I'd rather have at least a 12th guy around there somewhere, right? 15 is the limit, but I never once said that they were going to be at 15. Never. I've said 13 was probably going to be the limit anyway. And then we'll just see how it plays out. I don't know. I mean, it's easy to make assumptions about, because, what do they have? 3 guys transfer out?
Yeah.
Okay, Javin he wanted a shot to play more. He wanted to start, so he ended up at Middle Tennessee State. Miles transferred out. Now we know there's been an issue since legally, which I'm not going to get into. But it's not like Miles doesn't have some talent, but he doesn't. No offense, he doesn't know how to play. Right? It's going to be a process for him, and he needs weight. The injury he had last summer really held him back, because he wasn't able to hit the weight room. I mean, at all. He could do some weight work with his legs, but that was it. And you could see during the games that, there are certain moments like, okay, and then there are other moments where he's lost out there. We'll see how he does, at Oregon. Although Biddle, what's going to help him is Biddle's coming back, Biddle went through the NBA draft process. He's coming back.